of the Monday morning commute, what you need is a great escape. Join me on a Cuban road trip, taking in some of the treasures of the Caribbean's biggest and most beautiful island. Now, the vehicle I've got isn't quite as impressive as some of the cars you'll see on the roads of Cuba, but it's an awful lot better for fuel consumption. My starting point is appropriate. All distances to points across the nation are measured from the Capitolio building in the middle of Havana. Let me tell you the plan for today. I'm leaving Havana on the Atlantic side of the island and setting off for a bit of a jungle adventure along the way. I'll be visiting a beach which played an important part in Cuba's revolutionary struggle and ending up in the fine city of Cienfuegos on the Caribbean side of the island. Welcome to Cuba's main street. This is the Autopista Nacional, the national motorway, which runs for much of the length of the island. I prefer to call it the highway to the sun. Cuba is the same area as England, but longer and thinner. It's always good not to plan to cover too much ground in Cuba because, of course, you want to take your time and enjoy everything. And besides, some of the roads are a little bit windy and they're not quite perhaps up to the standards you might be used to. Very good fun though. Southeast of Havana, the Zapata Peninsula is Cuba's prime wildlife area. It's largely swampland with lush vegetation, thick mangrove and lots of crocodiles. The best way to explore this swamp is to step aboard a boat with Captain Mario. Hola. The average depth of the water is about 13 feet. Guamar is a great place to get in touch with the nature of this voluptuous island. Well, I'm glad someone else is doing the driving so I can make the most of this otherworldly landscape where the horizons are punctuated by trees. We're in the middle of the Laguna del Tesoro, Treasure Lake, which got its name because when the Spanish conquistadors arrived, the local people said, well, we're not going to hand over our riches and instead threw them in the water. So somewhere down there, there's quite a lot of wealth. Those local people were Taino Indians who themselves had arrived from what is now Venezuela. To see how the Taino, gracias, people lived, this village has been recreated, especially for you. I'm just being invited into a Taino hut. Hola. Hola. Gracias. Very nice to see you. Soy Simon. Oh, okay. Gracias. Ooh. The Taino people coined the name Cuba. They were crushed by the conquistadores, but at least some of their traditions survive. Oh! My goodness me! Well, thank you very much indeed. I've never been initiated like that before. Adios. Hasta luego. Oh, goodness! Joining the Boy Scouts was nothing like that. Once you've been initiated, if you want to come to terms with your Taino side, well, just rent one of these huts. There's dozens of them. They're very good value at about £40 a night, and they come with all kinds of mod cons that the original inhabitants didn't have, like aircon and TV. Best of all, you can explore this watery terrain and see wonders such as the biggest termite mound I've ever seen up a tree. The road south from Guamar to the Caribbean coast has other attractions that, as they say, are worth a detour. Well, after that long, hot drive, I'd love a quick, cool dive. If only the deepest flooded tectonic fault cave in Cuba was somewhere around here. Hang on. Just beautiful. Everything you could possibly want. Salty to keep you floating in the Caribbean sun and just washing away the cares of the journey. Oh. This is the Cueva de los Peces, the cave of the fish, called a cenote, and it's said to be over 200 feet deep. I'll take their word for it. This morning I was in Havana, this afternoon I'm at the beautiful Caribbean resort of Playa Girón. And if you say that place name to any Cuban, they will immediately know the backstory. Here it goes. After the triumph of the revolution in 1959, the United States wasn't exactly thrilled with the turn of events. They assembled a force of 1,400 Cuban exiles. The CIA trained them, and then in April 1961, they landed here at Playa Girón in what became known as the Bay of Pigs invasion. Don't worry, that's not Cuban exiles, it's a family on a pedalo. The invasion was a disaster. Fidel Castro himself took personal control of the campaign to repel the invaders, and this British Sea Fury helped to sink the vessels that had brought them. Eventually, around 1,200 men were rounded up on the beach and taken prisoner, returned to the United States a year later in return for more than $50 million worth of food and medical essentials. The Bay of Pigs invasion, or the Invasión de Playa Girón, was codenamed Plan Pluto. The whole shambles, which was launched from Nicaragua and defeated within days, is described in the museum opposite the resort. A new road cuts a big corner and brings you to Cienfuegos in barely an hour. By the standards of Cuban cities, it's relatively new, founded in 1819, and I think rather lovely. It was founded by a French settler, Louis Clement, and is full of 19th century French architecture. I'm staying at one of my favourite hotels in all of Cuba, La Unión. It's right in the centre, though when you step into this hidden courtyard you simply wouldn't know it. It's a real garden in the city. It's also got big, bright and comfortable rooms. Come and have a look. And there's that very Cuban feature, the towel sculpture, created by the chambermaid, a pair of smooching swans. And have a look at the view. The only hotel swimming pool I've ever seen that backs on to the city's cathedral. And here is the cathedral, which was built in the same year as the hotel, 1869. It looks out over Parque José Martí, the main square, which for me sums up so much that is unique and adorable about Cuba. Let's see if you agree. Starting in the theatre next door. The Teatro Tomás Terry, named after the man who paid for it. One of the richest men of the 19th century. Thank you. It doesn't really matter what the performance is like because the venue is 5-star. At the centre is the spot where the city was founded in 1819. The name Cienfuegos means 100 fires. A bit more exotic than, say, Crawley. José Martí, the father of Cuban independence, the national hero and the man for whom this square and much else on the island is named. As you find in any town or city square, Cuba is fond of monuments, but as far as I know, this is the only triumphal arch celebrating the independence that Jose Marti fought for. There are many candidates for the finest main square in Cuba, but Cienfuegos is one of the strongest contenders. The heart of the city has a rare elegance, flanked by handsome 19th and early 20th century structures.
To complete the circuit, the Palacio del Gobierno, the official government palace. But for something even more palatial, come and join me at the other end of town.
It's a very quick drive south to Punta Gorda, the old upper-class neighbourhood of Cienfuegos.
El Palacio de Valle, created by a sugar merchant called Acisclo del Valle y Blanco, whose imagination was as extravagant as his taste. Early in the 20th century, he bought a patch of land here in Punta Gorda, the most exclusive neighbourhood in town, and created this Hispanic Moorish confection. Come and have a look inside.
The palace is now a restaurant as well as a tourist attraction, so your Cuban day can be followed by an Arabian night.
Life is sweet on the sultry southern shore of Cuba, and I'm tempted to plant myself right here. But scanning the horizon, there's so much more of the island to discover. Cuba has many fine forms of transport, but where I'm going today, you can't reach on a train. The second stage of the journey is quite a short one, but it takes in some of the most beautiful scenery in Cuba. I'll be going through the Escambray Mountains and finishing in the fine city of Trinidad, a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
The easiest road clings to the Caribbean coast, passing resorts such as Yayaguanaba.
What a drive, and here I am at Topes de Coyantes, which was founded halfway through the 20th century as a health resort.
This is a Cure Hotel, which is German for Cure Hotel.
This place opened as a sanatorium for tuberculosis sufferers in 1952. It later became a garrison against counter-revolutionaries, and it's now a 4-star hotel. But if you'll excuse me, I want to get back to the great outdoors. The Escambray Mountains are Cuba's coffee country. It's said that the acidity of the soil, the presence of iron oxide, the altitude and the weather patterns make it ideal for growing coffee, just like the Blue Mountains of Jamaica. You can come through here and just pick a coffee bean and eat it. Very nice, tastes like a grape, nothing like coffee. Let's see if I can find a couple of the real stuff though. There's this fantastic Casa del Cafe where they explain how coffee has been produced through the years, including the use of this massive pestle and mortar. That's to separate the beans from the husks, and it's very good fun. Meet Pedro, el rey de café, the king of coffee, who is going to show me how you get from the raw beans to a very nice drink. This is going to take Pedro some time. Luckily, here's some he crushed earlier. Now, here is the coffee that he has kindly prepared for me. I'm going to add a little bit of honey on his recommendation, and let's see how it tastes. Oh, looks absolutely gorgeous. So let's just see how this tastes. Tastes smoky, tastes strong, exotic. Well, after that shot of coffee, I'm all prepared for one of the trails that leads through this gorgeous countryside. They say it's the original primary rainforest that once covered the whole area. This is the Sendero Jardín de Gigantes, the trail through the Garden of the Giants. Woohoo!
The Escambray Mountains are the location for plenty of good work, conserving one of the finest swathes of rainforest in the Caribbean. Only dead or dying trees are felled, helping the promotion of small-scale agriculture using the forest canopy to grow shade-demanding crops such as bananas and coffee.
Oh, well, I've reached the end of the trail. I thought I might find the Ark of the Covenant. No, instead there's a very nice swimming pool and lots of loud music. There are miradors, viewpoints right across the Escambray Mountains, but this is the best because it shows you where I'm going next. Could this be the best view in Cuba? I think it's got a pretty strong case. You have the mountains melting into the coastal plain and the Caribbean glistening beyond. But to appreciate properly my destination, the city of Trinidad, you need a close-up. And all that stands between me and there is a bit of a tortuous drive.
Cuba is a great country for a fly and flop holiday on the beach. But go on, wouldn't you want to try a bit of fly drive, exploring some spectacular scenery with a dream destination at the end?
5 centuries old and winning hearts ever since for charm and ravishing good looks. No, not me, Trinidad. La Canchanchara was established as a tavern in the 17th century, at a time when Trinidad was largely engaged in smuggling and was cut off from the rest of Cuba. Today, it offers the signature cocktail consisting of lemon, honey, and unrefined rum. Trinidad grew rich on smuggling and the sugar trade, and the Palacio Brunette is the perfect example of 18th century opulence. During the 19th century, the upper floor was added, and in the 20th century, it became the Romantic Museum, showing just how glorious life could be during the city's golden age. Oh, the Romantic Museum. Feel the love. Now, whether or not you're in a romantic mood, you're going to need somewhere to stay. In a moment, I'll show you one of Cuba's top hotels. But first, check out this Casa Particular. That means private home, and it belongs to Maria Elena, who rents it out to tourists. May I go in?
Thank you.
Gracias. It's called La Abanico, the fan. Ah. Muy lindo.
Son piezas antiguas y eso es un medio punto de una casa muy antigua de esta ciudad.
It's the oldest house, she says, in the city. More prosaically, ¿cuánto cuesta?
25.
25. That's less than £20.
Aquí tiene su baño.
And there's even a bathroom. And here is the best place in town. Gracias, senor. When I first came to Trinidad in 1989, this was the Hotel Canada, and I must say, it was showing its age. Now, it's been transformed and has the same easy style and grace as Trinidad itself. A room to delight an aristocrat. Every town in Cuba has a Casa de la Trova, House of the Troubadours, where people gather to listen to music. And Trinidad's is one of the very best. In a few hours' time, this place will be full of foreign visitors and Cubans mingling and listening to great music. Gracias. Tonight, I'm going to party like it's not 1999. A guidebook published in that year said there was only one restaurant in Trinidad that opened in the evening. Today, there's between 70 and 80. The same guidebook said, if you're lucky enough to get a salad, it will be either lettuce or tomato or cucumber. Well, look, I've got all three and a nice strip of avocado on the top, together with some real olive oil. The restaurant was originally a mansion owned by one of the wealthiest women in Trinidad and later served as a school of art. Talking of culture, time to head back to the Casa de la Trova for some music. What a trip it has been from Cienfuegos, and what a tremendous place to end up. I'm now halfway through my Cuban road trip and I can't believe what I've seen. I wonder what is in store for me on the rest of the adventure. Here's the plan for today. First on the list is Spiritus, one of the loveliest colonial cities in all of Cuba. Next, I'll be going to Santa Clara, where I'll pay my respects to Che Guevara, whose memorial is there. Then to Remedios, location for some of Cuba's finest architecture. Finally, I'll be relaxing by the beach in Cayo Santa Maria. Valle de los Ingenios, or Sugar Mill Valley, unravels beautifully northeast of Trinidad. Dozens of sugar mills once dotted this landscape. Today, a few relics of the era survive. And in the middle of Sugar Mill Valley, a tower of power. The Torre Manaca Iznaga is 44 metres or 144 feet and 244 steps high. Legend has it that the tower was built as the result of a feud between two brothers over the love of a woman. But the reality was less romantic than that. At the start of the 19th century, a rebellion by slaves in neighbouring Haiti forced sugar barons to flee. They escaped to the nearest alternative country, Cuba, and established themselves at the heart of the island. Then they built watchtowers like this to spy on their slaves. From the top you can survey an area of about 100 square miles. A Cuban historian described it as the ultimate symbol of slavery in the sugar fields. If you want all the charms and contradictions of Cuban cities distilled into a single location, then let me recommend Spiritus, in the heart of the island and characterised by cheerfulness. The entrance to the city is across the only brick arch bridge in Cuba. The great statesman Winston Churchill came to Spiritus in 1895 and described the city as second-rate and unhealthy. If only he could see the beautiful central square now. Of course, Spiritus, like the rest of Cuba, is extremely healthy. Spiritus is the only place in Cuba with a Latin name. It means Holy Spirit. La Iglesia Parroquial Mayor del Espíritu Santo, the Church of the Holy Spirit, claims to be the oldest surviving place of worship in Cuba. And I think it's got a lovely theatrical feeling. Churros! to Cuba by way of Spain. Los churros, por favor.
5 pesos.
5 pesos. That's about 12 pence.
Leche condensada.
No gracias. Okay. Muchas gracias, señor. Look at these. Deep fried dough with sugar on. Bit like sort of long, thin donuts. Very nice. And to wash it down, churros and coconut milk, the 11s of champions. Ha-ha! And when you've finished drinking the coconut milk, you can scrape out the succulent flesh.
The city of Santa Clara is about an hour west, just off the motorway. It would be a pleasant but unremarkable place were it not for one event that marked the climax of the revolutionary struggle.
From road to rail. This is Cuba's main railway line, running from Santiago de Cuba in the southeast of the island through to the capital Havana ahead of me. And in a sense, it traces the course of the revolution. By the last days of 1958, Fidel Castro's rebels had fought their way over 2 years to the centre of the island. The corrupt president, Fulgencio Batista, dispatched a tren blindado, an armoured train full of government troops to subdue the insurrection.
But here, in Santa Clara,
the train was derailed with the help of this bulldozer, which removed a section of track using some friendly persuasion. After a fierce battle, the government troops surrendered to rebels commanded by an Argentinian, Ernesto Guevara, better known as Che. And by New Year's Day 1959, Batista realised the game was up and fled Cuba.
Che was revered for his part in the triumph of the revolution and in particular the Battle of Santa Clara. He became the Minister of Banking and Industry for the new government in Havana.
Yet Che had always vowed to fight injustice in Latin America, and in 1967 he was in Bolivia seeking to spark a revolution. He never returned to Cuba. He was captured and on the 8th of October 1967 shot dead. In October 1997, 30 years after he died in the Bolivian jungle, Che's remains were brought back along with those of his comrades and interred here in Santa Clara. We're not allowed to film in the memorial, but I can record my thoughts for you.
When you walk into the memorial, you face a wall with niches filled with the remains of the men who fought in Bolivia and died with Che. At the centre is the familiar image of the revolutionary. Above it, a white star. Beside it, a red carnation. Che Guevara has been a familiar figure throughout my life. Now I feel closer to the man whose idealism inspired so many people in so many lands. The spirit of the world's favourite revolutionary is so much part of Cuba nearly half a century after his death. What Cubans call his iridiana luz, radiant light, shines on.
This whole area is called the Plaza de la Revolucion, but it's also got Santa Clara's bypass running straight through it. This is Cuba.
And in the city's main square, the facade of the hotel is still scarred by bullet holes from the Battle of Santa Clara. The next element of my journey through Cuba's heartland involves some photography.
Perfecto, gracias. Let me tell you what my plan is here in Remedios as soon as I've drunk my coffee. One of the authors of this guidebook reckons it's impossible to take a bad photograph here. Well, I think as a point-and-shoot photographer, I can possibly prove that wrong. Let's see what happens in the next hour, starting here at the beautiful Hotel Barcelona.
I'm putting that to the test with the colours, designs and sheer good looks of a town that seems to have been prettily left behind by the 21st century.
Now, you might be surprised to learn that for a sleepy town in Cuba's Midwest, Remedios has not one, but two boutique hotels. You've seen the Barcelona, this is the Mascot. The main site within Remedios is San Juan Church, and within it there are three great photo opportunities. First, the elaborate altar, then the figure of the Virgin of the Good Journey, who some say should be the patron saint of Cuba, and the only statue of the Immaculate Conception showing Mary as pregnant in all of Latin America. Oh, well, this one's not very good. Got the cameraman in it.
Now, I don't know about you, but I do like to be beside the seaside. Time for a drive out across the Atlantic. Cuba's north coast is decorated with a sprinkle of low islands known as keys. A quarter century ago, a remarkable feat of engineering saw this causeway, El Pedraplen, extend out from the shore near Remedios to connect a string of islands and provide a platform for a new playground for holidaymakers. The first development was on Cayo Las Brujas, meaning the witches, where the beach is indeed bewitching.
Well, I never drink and drive, but with an ocean breeze blowing, the tropical sun settling in the west at the end of another glorious day, and the prospect of being lulled to sleep by the Atlantic, I think driving, then drinking, is fair enough. Good morning. Now, you might feel that your own private balcony overlooking the Atlantic is a pretty close approximation to paradise, and I must say you'd have a point. But I'm looking forward to the open road. Care to join me?
The rooms here, by the way, are terrific, bright and breezy.
Road atlas, car keys, adventure. Today it's the very last lap of my road trip, and it's a bit of a seaside special. First, I'm heading for Cuba's premier resort, lovely Varadero. Then I'll be taking the Via Blanca, the highway which leads along the coast to the capital, Havana. Then I'll be ending my great escape. Back on dry land, let me tell you what my plan is. I'm heading initially for the resort of Varadero, but to get there I'm not taking the highway. Instead, I'm going to meander through on the Circuito Norte, the northern circuit, which is the very definition of off-the-beaten-track Cuba. One beautiful Cuban town that's barely changed over the past 15 years is Cardenas. I know that for a fact because 15 years ago I was researching this very guidebook to Cuba.
Around the start of the 20th century, wealthy citizens from Cardenas built themselves summer houses on a narrow peninsula jutting into the Atlantic just north from here. Since then, it's changed a bit.
From real life to sheer indulgence, welcome to Varadero, Cuba's leading beach destination. It's a gorgeous 12-mile sliver of sand dunes full of hotels and all-inclusive resorts like this one, Memories. Holidaymakers come here for fun in the sun with nourishment in abundance, pools, sports facilities and organised activities such as yoga, learning Spanish, volleyball and ballroom dancing. Just don't try them all at the same time. Oh, and did I mention the beach? In fact, It's difficult to tear yourself away from the lap of luxury, but let me show you why I think you should treat yourself to exploring Varadero. The beach here is washed by the Atlantic Ocean, but of course Cuba is a Caribbean island. And since yachtsmen and women enjoy sailing in the Caribbean, a brand new marina has opened up here. In the middle of the peninsula, Millionaires Row. Jose Iturrias Jozone, a Basque rum magnate, bought a patch of land here and decided to install his own private lake. It's now a public lake, and Parque Jozone is a very relaxed alternative to the sometimes raucous life of the rest of Varadero. On a similar theme, a French millionaire named Irene Dupont decided to buy some land and build himself a little seaside cottage, the Mansion Xanadu. Today, the top floor is a bar with a view of the Atlantic on one side, an 18-hole golf course on another, and it's very popular with magazines for fashion shoots. By the way, I'm not actually on the fashion shoot. Lou is the model. I normally look like this. In Cuba, the refrain used to be, all you need is Che. But then Ringo, John, George and Paul joined the party, so to speak, here at the Beatles Bar in Varadero, where there is live music from 10 p.m. till 1 a.m, 8 days a week. And the band's warming up now. Candidate for the strangest city square name anywhere is this one, Parque de las 8,000 Taquillas, the square of 8,000 lockers. Here's how the name came about. Before the revolution, most of the beaches were private, but afterwards, any Cuban who wanted to could come here, and they'd need somewhere to stash their belongings, so 8,000 lockers were installed. The lockers have long since gone, and for a while there were restrictions on ordinary Cubans coming to Varadero. But now, once again, the beach is open to all. From the white sand to the white way, the Via Blanca.
Travelling through Cuba at ground level is endlessly rewarding, but you can always dig a little deeper. Billed as Cuba's oldest tourist attraction and discovered by a farmer in 1861. No, not me, the wonderful caves of Bellamar. The vital figures, it's 105 feet deep, it extends for over 2 miles, and it's a constant 25 degrees Celsius at the foot. Nature plus time is a creative combination, especially here where you can see how beautiful crystallized calcium carbonate can be. The provincial capital, Matanzas, is said to represent not one, but 2 great European cities. It's known as the Creole Venice because of all the bridges, though the waterways here aren't lined by Renaissance palaces, instead fishermen's huts. And Matanzas is also known as the Athens of Cuba. The city's slogan, Matanzas Works, is revolutionary and cultured. The Hotel Velasco dates from 1902 and decorates the main square in Matanzas. The most spectacular stretch of the Via Blanca is the Bridge of Bacunayagua. It's Cuba's highest and widest, with a span of over 1,000 feet and over 300 feet above the valley. It was officially opened by Fidel Castro shortly after he came to power in 1959. A final detour for a close encounter with one of the greatest writers of the 20th century. You can understand what inspired Ernest Hemingway to live in Cuba and write some of his best work on the island, in between some industrial-grade indulgence.
Ernest Hemingway was seduced by Cuba in the 1930s. He moved to the island and lived on the outskirts of Havana for more than 20 years. The American writer loved deep-sea fishing and kept a boat, El Pilar, here in the village of Kohima. After each voyage, he would habitually dine here at La Terrazza de Kohima and sometimes enjoy a drink or two. The walls are lined with examples of his angling prowess. The location and the locals inspired Hemingway to write The Old Man and the Sea, which won the Nobel Prize for Literature. Havana, the end of the road. Here, the Via Blanca disappears into a tunnel beneath the capital's harbour, and I think I'm going to melt away into the streets of old Havana to celebrate my great escape. Thanks for joining me. For me, this square sums up so much that's unique and adorable about Cuba. I can't say adorable. For me, the square sums up so much that's unique and adorable about